The hour of 6 p.m. having arrived, I will call to order this regular meeting of the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets just as you enter the meeting room. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on the agenda item under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks will be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes to has had a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. The minute taker is participating remotely. Committee members, please be sure to turn on your microphones when speaking. If the minute taker is unable to hear, they will ask that you speak louder or turn on your microphone. We don't have anyone participating remotely tonight, and we do have a quorum present in the room. With that, I'll move to our first item. We have Conan Salata, concerns regarding the issuance of fire permits. I don't know if you want to come forward to present on your concern.
Check, check, check. Conan Soliday, 132 Kennedy Drive. I guess my concerns are pretty straightforward. Many years ago, it seems, the act of obtaining a fire permit was pretty straightforward, pretty simple process. It was just a matter of going down to your local station, in my case, the West Station right across from the YMCA. You go in there, prove that you actually live at the residence, give your name, prove that you are a certain age, that you're over 18, and you get yourself an annual permit, and that's it. Pretty straightforward. After the incident a couple of years ago where everything shut down, the fire department moved to a online-only option, which when it first started was like $1.50, $2 for the permit. And of course, a credit card was necessary and internet access was necessary, a PC, a printer, the whole nine. Now, it has moved up to $5.50, which is ridiculous in my opinion. Even any kind of monetary fee is ridiculous for something that should be free and available to all of the residents of New Hampshire. Not to mention, you need internet, you need a PC, you need a printer, and you need a credit card. These are all things which, in my opinion, are burdensome, and I question the legality concerning the being able to force the residents to put up with that. From what I've been able to tell, looking at the RSA governing fire permits and the state regulation, there's no mention that any of these are part of the process. So I feel that if they want to continue to use the online option, I think that should be okay for the people who don't want to come in to the station and get one physically, get a printed sheet out physically. But I think that there should be an option for those of us who would rather get their hands on a manual printout. No more lockdowns. There's always someone at the station. I don't see that there's really any reason why the station, which has done this for many, many years, can't go ahead and make that happen. And I can answer any questions regarding how I've done it in the past.
Thank you very much. I've actually gone through both processes myself, so I'm pretty familiar with that
Right.
process there. City Manager?
So we do have a policy at the fire department that does allow Keene officers to manually enter the permit into the system. So you do still have the option of getting a permit through the fire department. If you go into the building, don't want to use your credit card, they can manually enter it into the system.
I went through that process as well, and I had to stay in the waiting room for like 10 minutes until they managed to track someone down who had access to the computer. And on top of that, every time I talk to anyone, they're like, no, this is not how you do it. You need to go to this website, you need to go online, you need to do it. So maybe passing that information down to the soldiers would be required so that you don't get the runaround and get kicked right out of the building because you're not following the rules like they want you to. So that's good to know. But like I said, I don't know that all of the firefighters know that.
Thank you. And so this one is listed as refer to informational. Are you open to us referring to staff just for you? Maybe it is an education to say, make sure everybody knows that they can. And not with a fault, but.
And it would be nice if that information was also relayed to the Keene website, because there's no option to go to your station anymore. This is how you do it, and this is the only option you have available to you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me because the end result is the same. We have a policy. The policy was issued in April of 2023. It was sent out to all the firefighters. Maybe there needs to be some additional education. We can certainly take care of that, and maybe there needs to be some wording adjustment on the website that we can also address.
Perfect. Yeah, that seems fair. If we can fit it on the website that just says that, hey, and you can also choose to come into the station as long as this team knows that it's an option. Having gone through the manual process, I've had to wait every time I've done it just because of, you got to find the right person even when it was a paper form before we had the online. So I don't know that we can fix the wait because everybody has stuff going on, but I hope that works.
Right, or even have blank sheets, because now as you mentioned, manager, they have to do this all online themselves. Could we just get some of those sheets and have them on a stack somewhere available to the people who want to do walk-ins?
Mm-hmm. Chief, I think you want to respond. There's a mic there. Oh. Yeah.
Don Farquhar, Fire Chief. We like inquiries like this because it did make us discover that there might not be, communication on it. We had a similar request some time ago, which drove the change in policy. We spoke to a local ranger, and we were unaware, as I guess a lot of people were, that there was an option to come in the firehouse and we can do it internally with no charge. It's important to note the benefit of doing it on the online system is tremendous. Mm-hmm. What it does is anyone has an open permit, we see it on the computer screen. So if we get a call for smoke in the area, we can look to see if he has an open permit or not. That's very important for us when we're responding to emergencies. And it has another feature which is incredibly important. In high danger days when you're not allowed to burn, that system gives us the ability to message back anyone with a permit to give them notification that they can't burn on that day, so it's an extra layer of safety. The paper permit becomes, I guess technically we could take it and then enter it. We could look at that as just a process issue to the point of just not being in the firehouses all the time. We're incredibly busy. There are times when there is a little bit of wait in the lobby because of call volume. So it's important that people follow this process. It's for safety reasons, and anything we can do to make it customer friendly. We're very happy to listen and make any changes necessary.
I understand the fact that everyone gets tagged. I guess they get an email or a text, or how does that work?
From your email address, you would send.
But there is a disclaimer still that says that before you do anything, you need to call and verify that it is a good burn day. So people are still going to find that out if they follow the.
And that's fair. So I try to keep everything going, questions through me, but I totally aligned. I think it sounds like we have a process in place. We're willing to make some changes to make it so it's people are more aware and easier. But yeah, thank you very much for this. And any questions from the committee? Any questions from the public? Anybody else? Okay, ready for a motion if you're up for it.
Thank you for hearing me.
Yeah, of course.
I believe this is the direction that we wanted to go. Move to recommend that the communication be referred to staff.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Hopefully that helps. Moving to number 2, Reverend Worth for request for parking passes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me. One of my parishioners was speaking to the town clerk and to some other folks in town and found the precedent that there have been a few other long-term nonprofits that have a couple of parking passes when they don't have their own parking. And so he said, well, why don't you request some? and wrote a letter that I could edit, which I did. So here I am. The request is for 5 parking permits to be used by staff and volunteers at St. James to put on your windshield in the parking lot behind St. James. And I have office staff that's there Tuesday to Friday from 10 to 2, so it's not a really full-time thing. I have a custodian that comes in once a week and a bookkeeper that comes in once a week. And my office is Brubaker's, so I'm hardly ever at the church. But it would be very helpful, I think, to have a parking pass. And we particularly feel bad when we have a funeral and people get tickets for having a funeral, and we could give the parking passes to the immediate family on the days of the funeral. So it would be helpful to have them, and that's why I'm here to ask if that's possible.
Thank you very much. Thank you, City Manager.
I'd be interested to know the nonprofits that have parking passes, because
I
they
knew
should
you were going to
not.
say that because
Yeah.
one was mentioned and now I don't remember what
Yeah.
it is.
So there was American Red Cross, but it was not parking passes. So the American Red Cross has worked with the fire department and the Public Works Emergency Management Director in the past and gotten permission to park their trailers in our lots, our property, on our property, but not in our parking spaces. So the city council has the only free parking that's given is related to events. So events come forward, and the city council has a free parking policy that talks about these events when they're being held by a nonprofit can request a parking pass for that day, for that event specifically. And so I'm not aware of anything else, but if you do know of some, I would be very interested to
I'll
know
let you
that.
know who it was because,
Yeah.
I came here after a long day and I didn't check my computer, so.
Yeah, yeah. So unfortunately, I don't think there's a mechanism in our policies or in our code that allows us to give free parking. The parking system is completely run by the revenue we receive. It's not part of general taxation. So all of the fines, the penalties, the meter fees, those are all running the system. And so very rarely do we waive the charge for parking, and I'm not aware of us giving any out to nonprofits.
In the letter, it does reference the Red Cross as the example.
Okay.
In the letter, so
Well,
if
that's
the Red
what it
Cross
is.
was a different, quite
A
slightly
different
thing.
situation.
Different situation.
And is a funeral an event that would be applicable?
It would have to go through city council for a vote every time, which I think would be
I
challenging.
have a lot of funerals. I think that would be onerous. Yeah.
There is a process to go through with the parking office to pay for spots.
I see.
And I know through the program we had, there were some motorcycles that did a program where we were able to do a pre-reserved, you could kind of park wherever. I don't know how that ended up working out,
Yeah,
but
so we do have spots that we could sell them on Gilboa Ave and nearby, parking permits. But in regards to the event related to the motorcycles, we created a system in the parking office where they pre-bought for all of the people that were attending and gave out those passes. And so we were able to work out a system for them because they didn't want the people coming to the event to have to pay.
so it may be something worth talking to the parking office at some point, but I don't know that we can address anything through tonight's meeting.
Okay.
That's
Well, as I said, I was sent here.
perfect. No,
So
Thank
now
you.
I'll relay the message.
you might as well ask, right? It's,
All right.
And-
Thank you very
And
much.
our deputy city manager to be, April 1st, is working with our parking office, and she may have some additional information to share.
Thank you, Rebecca Landry. I just want to let you all know that I did speak with the parking manager today, and she said that there are parking spots available for permit right behind SIDS, so just south of SIDS, which is near that area. So there actually is space, and there are permits available in that space.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that, if any questions from the committee, any questions from the public? Okay. Ready for a motion?
Move to recommend the acceptance of communication on St. James Episcopal Church request for parking passes on Gilboa Avenue parking lot as information.
Second.
Any follow-up commentary? Okay. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much for coming in.
your time. Bye-bye.
Moving to number 3, on departments and class allocation.
Good evening. Assistant City Manager, Human Resources Director Elizabeth Fox. I am here requesting the committee recommend adoption of Ordinance 02402. Ordinance 02402 is in follow-up to some organizational adjustments that I think the city manager just alluded to a few minutes ago. We are in the process of promoting two current employees to new positions, and one position that's being vacated is the current position of Parks, Rec, and Facilities Director. As part of the organizational adjustments that we are making, facilities is going to reside with a responsibility that resides with the deputy city manager position. So this ordinance adjustment basically proposes to change the job title of the position being vacated to Parks and Recreation Director. It, in addition to addressing Chapter 2, which outlines the administrative departments, it addresses Division 11, Chapter 58, which talks about the responsibilities of the Parks and Recreation Department to be. And then finally, there is an adjustment to the salary job title, Ordinance 62-194, that eliminates the positions of Parks, Rec, and Facilities Director and Communications and Marketing Director, and inserts the position of Parks and Recreation Director effective April 1st. Our intention is to begin recruitment for a new Parks and Recreation Director in the very, very near future, and this will allow us to do so.
Awesome, thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Okay. Any questions from the crowd? All right. I don't think we have any public left. With that, I'm ready for a motion.
Move to recommend the adoption of Ordinance 2024-02.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to number 4, construction engineering change for Upper Winchester Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucier, City Engineer. We have a bet going there in the back row about how long tonight's meeting is going to take. So I can assure you that I will take at least 15 minutes for this item. So the request tonight is a change order related to the Winchester Street reconstruction project. As you know, this has been going on now for quite some time. McFarland Johnson is the project engineer of record. So they did all of the design work for us. Federal highway rules sort of changed a couple of years ago where, it's always been my preference to have the design engineer continue during construction. They have a vested interest in making sure that the project goes very smoothly for us, right? DOT takes a very different perspective on that, federal highway specifically. They don't allow the design engineer to continue as the construction administration engineer. But there's always a requirement to have the design engineer sort of on call during construction. Because they designed the project, there are certain things that they really need to weigh in on when there's questions about the design intent or the interpretation of a drawing or a detail, or there's a requirement to clarify a specific calculation with the bridge or what have you. We need to have them available and under contract. So as part of this project, McFarland Johnson was given a contract at the beginning to do those sort of administrative requirements for us. Because of the bridge specifically, there was a lot of details and shop drawings to be reviewed. Couple of iterations, as they had questions and they sent them back to the contractor and the contractor made corrections and whatnot. Long story short, they've used up the original budget that was allocated for that. It's all done on a time and materials basis. So we're getting towards the end. There's not a whole lot left to do, but we don't want to be in a position where we have to stop the project so that we can come and ask for more budget. So we're here asking tonight for some additional budget for McFarland Johnson to continue providing those services through the end of the project. This does participate with DOT for the 80-20 split. I think the memo says that we're waiting for approval from DOT. We've since gotten it. We actually got that approval on Tuesday. So this would just be, we would be on the hook for 20% of the cost that we ended up actually incurring, which, up to, I guess, with its request for authorization, up to $3,300 of the $16,500. That's not to say we're definitely going to spend that much money, but that's the budget we would be setting.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think this one makes sense, but any questions from the committee? Any questions from the crowd? We're keeping you under your 15. With that, I'll take a motion. I think.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute a professional service change order with McFarland Johnson in the amount not to exceed $16,500.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank you,
It's
Mr. Chair.
unanimous. Thank you. We're going to take numbers 5, 6, and 7 together from a discussion standpoint, but we'll do separate motions.
Good evening, Aaron Costa, Assistant Public Works Director, Manager of the Wastewater Treatment Plant. I'm here tonight with Christian Tarr, the Utilities Maintenance Manager. As you just said, we're going to tackle the next 3 items on the agenda. First, I'm going to talk about the funding request, and I'm going to turn it over to Christian to talk about the more technical details of the repairs and the sole source request. So as we've discussed in front of this committee many times, Martell Court Pump Station is the heart of our sewer collection system. It conveys all the wastewater collected from the city of Keene and Marlboro to the wastewater treatment plant. It's equipped with 3 250 horsepower pumps and 150 horsepower pump that are due for repair. And they're due for repair a little bit quicker than we anticipated, and therefore we don't have an established budget in our CIP for this work. So that's where these funding requests are, and that's why those funding requests are being asked for. We have 2 funding source requests, both from the Rose Lane Closure Project. It was a project at the beginning, and it has been turned into a program because there are continued maintenance activities that need to be done at Rose Lane, but we have some unspent bond funds that we'd like reallocated to the Martell Court Pump replacement project, and we have about $50,000 in additional funds from Rose Lane that are not bond funds, but we would still like that money reallocated to work on these pumps. Just quickly about Rose Lane. Rose Lane was the first wastewater plant the city owned and operated. Came online in the 30s and went offline in the mid-80s when the current plant came online. We had a project to close that out in accordance with all state regulations. We did that. We came in under budget, and that's why there's that funding left in that project. And even if all of the requests are approved, that would still leave a little over $30,000 in the budget for the gas monitoring and inspection work that is done twice a year to the tune of about $5,000, in which we hire a private consultant to do that work for us. So with that, that's a little bit about the background. I'm going to turn it over to Christian, who's going to talk a little bit more about the pump work and the sole source.
Thanks, Aaron. Good evening, everybody. Christian Tarr, Utilities Maintenance Manager. Aaron touched base on the 4 pumps at the pump station, and what we're looking to do is sole source the Farrar Company to do the work, and the justified reasons, I believe, are as follows. One, that the motors are pretty much routine. You could send it to any electrical contractor to make the repairs, but the pumps themselves are called, and Alls-Chalmers is the manufacturer of it, and it's sold through a distributor called Xylem, which is one of the largest distributors in the world as far as wastewater pumping equipment. We've had service done, I think it was in 2012, 13, that had to be shipped out. The work was actually shipped to a company outside of Boston. So Xylem refers us to the companies that are available to work on those particular brands of pumps or that particular style of pump. Just recently, we've realized that Farrar has opened a pump servicing aspect to their company and are part of this Alls-Chalmers group. So they are certified to work on the equipment. One of the big benefits of that being local is just the turnaround on the equipment. When we were sending it to Connecticut, it was taking 4, maybe 6 weeks to get the materials, to have it processed, repaired, and then shipped back up. Ferrars is able to turn it around much quicker, along with the fact that they have a manufacturing facility, although it's small in comparison to some of the other companies, with the ability to manufacture some of the wear items that we would need to repair the pumps. So the ability for them to actually manufacture the parts in-house, turnaround, and then get it back to us in a short period of time is a huge benefit to the city of Keene. I know cost is obviously a huge part of this, but we recently had repairs done on the motors, or one motor, pump number 4. We sent that, I got requests for quotes, and Farrar actually did come back for the scope of work that was done for us at the lowest cost. So they are right in the ballpark with all the other distributors.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any questions from Mr. Lake?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to clarify on the sole source piece. So is our understanding that this company is the only one in the area that does this, and therefore if we were to go to bid, we'd have to potentially ship it somewhere else if we were to go to some other organization? Am I understanding that piece correctly?
Yeah, so when I've had the repairs done before, we went to Xylem and we went out for 3 quotes to repair this particular pump. It was pump 1 at the time. When I got the 3 quotes at the time, it was Connecticut, which was part of the Xylem headquarters, and they had a manufacturing and repair facility there. Another company just outside of Boston, and then another one which was somewhere outside of Winchington, Mass, I think it was. So they were all relatively, far away, with the one outside of Boston coming in at the lowest bid. And so that's how we did this the first time when we made repairs on that first pump. But noting that the technicians at Farrar are now certified technicians for this make of pump, for this Alls-Chalmers style pump, it actually, obviously decreases the travel time, the lead times, and the ability to make materials in-house, which could save us cost on buying OEM parts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Personally, I'm not a big fan of sole source, but I understand it, and West Street's a lot closer than any of the places you named, so that's great. I will say in the background notes, it doesn't actually include the price in the notes anywhere for it. I know if I add the other 2 together, I assume it's about $77,000, but it's not in the pricing in this.
So we did work on one pump motor, and it was about $13,000 in total. That doesn't include the pump. So kind of adding all of this together, we probably, between these 2 reallocations, aren't going to have enough money to do all the work on all 4 pumps and motors, but it's going to get us almost all the way there. It's a really good start. We're looking at probably $120,000, and we're going to look at possibly looking at end of the year budget funds to kind of make up the difference was our strategy for funding. And it's really hard to bid this type of work because even though we've had the pumps and motors evaluated, you really don't know what is wrong or what needs to be repaired until these pumps and motors are actually in the shop and torn apart. So you can get an estimate, but you won't have a real hard number on what it's going to cost to make the repairs until they've been properly evaluated, and you can't really do that from an exterior evaluation.
I can appreciate that. The only problem I have with the motion as written is it doesn't have a cap on it. And that's a concern, I guess, just to sole source with no cap and just say, yep, we're going to fix them.
So I understand that part. So what I think we are asking for too is that for these 4 pumps and motors, that Farrar, it doesn't matter, say we get all of these repaired and everything works, we would still like to work with Farrar in the future. So we would like to sole source them as a provider of service and maintenance for these 4 pumps and motors only at Martell Court.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't love the not having a cap on what we're gonna spend. We just said we're gonna go fix them. I assume if it starts to go outrageous, like, there's not a funding pool infinitely, so at some point, you're gonna have to come back if you run out of money, so. Okay, I guess with that, oh, go ahead, yeah.
Going to, the point you're going.
Your microphone.
Why isn't this two separate things? Because one, you're having a repair. You get the repair, it is done. And then shouldn't it be you have a maintenance contract on the equipment? Then you get a good idea how much it costs to repair, and then we would get a cost of what you figure the maintenance contract would be on a yearly basis, and that would be going into the budget going forward. But repairing the pumps, that's a one-time thing.
Yeah, and I understand exactly what you're saying. So from the maintenance perspective, the utilities maintenance staff at the City of Keene handles 95% of all the routine maintenance that happens with these pumps, and have done it for a multitude of years. What we've encountered is premature failure of bearing equipment because of the rags that we've dealt with in the past. So I don't think that the maintenance cost when the pumps are operating efficiently or back to their normal operating state is something that I'm concerned with. It's the immediate cost of premature wear that we're trying to get repaired. So the majority of the maintenance is done in-house based off of our operating budget.
I can agree with that, what you just said, but you said that your number one priority is getting the pumps repaired and then worrying about later on if the rags can damage them and bearings, and then you would have to have someone go out. Well, our concern is making sure that happens, but our concern is also being able to explain it. And so if all the maintenance is done by the city, say in the first year, and maybe every 18 months it goes out, would that be necessary, require a standing maintenance agreement, or would that go in as necessary? And
I think I'll try to help clarify.
Yeah.
The sole source is for this vendor for these 4 motors, so pumps. And so, if we have different things that we have sole sourced for, and it's for that item. So in the future, if something needs to happen to this pump, we'll use this vendor and we won't go out to bid. And that's why it doesn't have a dollar amount. It's just, we're gonna use this vendor. Unless something changes, something could change with the use of the vendor, and we would come back and bid it out and use a different vendor. But I think that's why they're trying to leave that flexible, because they don't know exactly what the vendor's going to end up doing to these pumps. But that vendor is for these pumps and the sole source motion, if that makes sense.
I just tried to make it clarifying.
No, I appreciate it. I think we broke some of people's overs on the back there of, I'm sorry, but we had some good questions on this one, so. With that, if any other questions from the group up here? No? Any questions from the audience on this topic? All right, ready for a motion?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to sole source Farrar Corporation for repairs and maintenance of 4 raw sewage pumps at the Martell Court Pump Station.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. The second one, any questions from up here before we go forward? Any questions from the audience on the second, I guess number 6? Seeing none, ready for a motion?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to reallocate $50,000 from the Rose Lane Maintenance Project to the Martell Court Pump and Control Replacement Project.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Moving on to number 7 on the same topic. Any questions up here on number 7? Any questions from the audience on number 7? Okay, seeing none, I'm ready for a motion.
Move to recommend the adoption of Resolution R 2024-07.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Just for the record, and this is the item that was brought up about a month ago concerning the unanticipated cost with,
No, that's, you're on number 8. You're one ahead.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Any questions on number 7? No? All right, all those in favor? That's unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving
I read the
on.
motion.
Yeah. Moving on to number 8, for the appropriation of funds from the unassigned fund balance.
Good evening, I'm Mary Howe, Finance Director, and I'm here with Natalie Darcy, Human Services Manager. And we're here to request that you approve or move forward the resolution, Resolution R 2024-5, relating to the appropriation of funds and use of unassigned fund balance in the amount of $900,000 for the FY '24 Finance Department operating budget. The Human Services General Assistant rental line in the '24 operating budget is projected to be overexpended by $900,000 at the end of 2024 due to an increased demand in shelter and assistance. And in the past, Human Services Division was able to refer most persons presenting as homeless to area shelters at no cost to the city. Affordable housing was available, and transition homelessness clients, we were able to transition them into apartments. Hotel accommodations back then weren't used only in a rare and extraordinary circumstance. Natalie will provide a little more information in detail as to what led us to where we are now.
Thank you.
Okay, so about the time COVID-19 pandemic began, we had a vast impact on our homeless population and low-income individuals. So we had federal funds through the New Hampshire Emergency Rental Assistance Program that provided assistance to families with rent and utility payments through the COVID emergency. So while the ERAP funds provided crucial support to individuals and families struggling with rent and utilities, it unintentionally disincentralized savings for future payments due to the lack of restrictions. So they would be receiving all of this rental funds. They had no accountability with those rental funds, and so they got used to a higher standard of living than they were able to provide for themselves once the program ended. So when the program ended, families were unprepared financially to cover basic needs expenses. Coinciding with the end of the federal funds was a rental moratorium forbidding landlords from evicting tenants for non-payment of rent, removal of encampments, and an increase of homeless migration from out of the Keene area led to increased need for shelter and assistance. With shelters at a maximum capacity, the city is legally obliged by the state of New Hampshire statute to provide shelter for those in need. Hotels became the only option as a means of shelter for the homeless. The influx of individuals and families seen by Human Services presents an ongoing challenge with no immediate solution for clients. Rental rates and income level requirements for applicants set housing out of reach for those with little or no income. Relying on shelters is unrealistic as shelters remain at maximum capacity, leaving the city with no option but to utilize various city hotels for shelter for those in need. Currently, Human Services is averaging 23 rooms per night for shelter, and currently it's 25. Whenever possible, we will assist those in need with rental assistance to avoid eviction that could lead to homelessness. And so what would happen is people would be under eviction and we would have to go back and look at 2 to 3 months worth of rent to stop the eviction rather than put somebody in a hotel room at between $1,700 and $5,000 a month per room. So February surpassed the amount by $442,520. The city is currently averaging $100,000 a month in housing assistance. So with the remaining months, the budgetary shortfall is projected to be $900,000.
Okay, thank you. City Manager?
So I want to start by recognizing Natalie and her staff. They have carried a heavy burden over the last couple of years as these numbers have increased. We weren't increasing staff to deal with all of this. And in fact, I asked for some statistics to take a look at, how much it increased. And, back in fiscal 18 and 19, we were only seeing 47 homeless individuals. When this sheet was created, we were at, for fiscal 24, 258 homeless individuals. I think we've surpassed 300 now, but, it's every day we're seeing more people. So, we have done a lot of very creative things to try to address the issue. We have partners that help us. SES has been a great partner. I've talked about that in the past. But there's not much else that we can do at this time. One of the things I asked Natalie was, do you think we're at the peak? We've really been dealing with sort of the after effects of all those COVID programs and the amount of funds that were being doled out and then stopped dramatically put a burden on us. And I think we are, because if we're not, we need to look at this number a little differently about more permanent changes for the future. But if we are, and if we are seeing the peak now and things begin to start to slow down, this is a temporary issue. I think we will always in Keene see more homeless because we are performing the function for the region. The communities around us, they don't have homeless shelters. Even some of the people across the border in other states are coming here if the shelters are full there. So we're seeing, an influx of people from everywhere. And I've talked about the challenges with shelters because everyone thinks, well, let's just build more shelters. And it doesn't really work because we are part of a bigger system. We're part of the 211 system. And at least at the shelters that are receiving grant funds from the state, they have to accept every time there's an open bed an individual, regardless of where they're from. And so people are sent here. And so, we've looked at all these things, and we're not alone in this struggle. I do think we are feeling it to a much greater degree than other cities. The mayor has been talking to the mayors around the state, and they are all seeing a dramatic increase in their welfare budgets as well. But it's not as high as us. And there has been some work at the Senate with Senator Fenton to put forward a bill, Senate Bill 406, and the mayor worked with the other mayors in the state to sign a letter in support of that. And they've been working really hard to push Senate Bill 406 forward because that would bring some additional funds to us to relieve some of this expense. And we will get into how that might happen in terms of if this bill makes it out of the Senate. That's a whole nother question. But right now, it's a possibility. It was supposed to be voted on this week, and it did not get voted on. But we're looking at all avenues for relief for the city. I did tonight bring with me a copy of a press release, and I just want to, if you don't mind. So this press release was written by the Welfare Association, the local association for New Hampshire, and Natalie is an active member, board member, an executive board member of that. And it's talking about what we're seeing, and how it's happening everywhere, and it's saying exactly what Natalie just said. You know, with the end of those the ERAP program, the COVID relief programs, the difficulty to find affordable housing, the increase in the costs of rental units, every community that is providing assistance to the homeless is experiencing this right now. And so we're definitely not alone. But tonight, we need the additional funds because the state law says we will pay for the needs of our homeless regardless of whether or not we have the money or the budget is overspent. You know, there's not a lot of choice in that matter. It's something that we must do legally and morally. And so at the end of the fiscal year, if we haven't used all of these funds, it will go back to the unallocated fund balance. And so there's no risk of over appropriating funds from the fund balance to the human services budget, because it will go back to that line if we do not need it, which is my hope, that we can reduce some of this. You know, other things that we've done, we've brought on an outreach worker. It took us a long time to get someone in that position. We've advertised multiple times, but we finally have someone, and they're doing outreach to the people who are at the hotel, to the people, you know, who are in the woods. They're reaching out, and I think that's going to make a difference, but it's going to take a while to see that. The other thing that happened is we have worked with several property owners to clean up properties. And when you're cleaning up properties and someone's camping on there, we have to be prepared to put them up somewhere. And we've said that all along. If they come in and they fill out an application and they qualify, we have to find a place for them. And so that's definitely part of this. It's some part of it. I don't know how much, but it is a part of it. So it's not something we enjoy doing, asking for this much money, but it is something that's necessary. And, you know, I feel like Natalie and her team might be under some criticism, and I don't want that to be the case, because I've been involved with this every step of the way, and they're doing a fabulous job for the taxpayers of the city of Keene.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the work. I can imagine. Yes.
I don't think it's going to get better, unfortunately. And you were right on the button with the COVID money. With all that money that went out there, plus another $600 every single week, I can tell you, I was working in an unemployment office, and I said, I wish I'd get laid off because I would double my salary. And yes, a lot of people basically got steak, and now they have to go back to Salisbury steak. The prices are of the homes that are up. Someone called me about 3 weeks ago and says, I'll buy your house, cash offer, and that's going on. And I'm going, hey, my house is paid off. I'm not going to go take a 7-8% mortgage. So people are staying in the houses. Being on the school board, we get a list, the number of the children that are homeless. I've been on the school board for 20 years, and it's by far the highest it's ever been. When I was on the city council before 10 years ago, we were worrying about the 100-night shelter. Could we do the 100-night shelter that would help solve our problem? We've used all our options, and the city manager is right. A few years back, the guy came to me at the American Legion. He lived in Marlow, and he goes, I went to the people in the town not to rent to this family because this family had 5 children, and you know what it would do to our taxes. Unfortunately, that happens in small towns. If your child has special needs, they get together and they don't rent to them. I believe it's totally unethical, but with the city, we have a lot of the services. We have the hotels, motels, and a whole bunch of stuff. And you guys are doing a great job of keeping the families off the street. Because all you have to do is go out for a walk at 6 o'clock and see all the couch surfers, some of them with children and everything. We're saving money because they're couch surfing. They have no guaranteed place to stay every night. And again, I want to thank you for everything you're doing is to get as many of those off that and get them in kind of a secure place, especially for the children. And so again, thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone from the public? Come forward, just state your name and address for the minute taker, please.
Hello, my name's Charles Smith. I live on 9 Gate Street, right in Keene here. And I have worked with Natalie before. She's helped me out, and I love Natalie. She does a great job. I just hope that we can look at the totality of this situation, because I've been in the same house for 21 years. I've worked at Melanson's for 5 years. I've worked at Home Depot for 6 years, W.E. Brown for a year. Paid a lot of taxes here before I became disabled. And my rent is going up and up and up. And it's at the point now, I'm on my third landlord from the house being bought and resold. I've helped people out. I've let them sleep on my couch because I have compassion, just like Natalie, but every time I do, something ends up getting stolen, so I don't do that anymore. So, I mean, by helping out the homeless, we're going to be creating the homeless, essentially, because I'm on a fixed income, and my rent's going to go up again October 1st, and I'm not going to be able to afford it. And I don't want to have to keep going to the city. I'm just wondering, why can't we keep this somewhat localized? I mean, at least Cheshire County, because the people aren't coming here necessarily because they're homeless. They're coming here because they get to stay at the Best Western. I've met many people that are loving it, and they're perfectly capable of working. And because I walk around and, you know, I meet a lot of people. I'm a social person, and that's why I've helped a lot of people in the past, and I still try and help them, but I just don't let them stay at my house anymore. There's also another aspect of this. I mean, there was a huge outbreak of chickenpox in Roxbury yesterday, Massachusetts. You know, all these people coming into this country eventually are going to be bleeding into Keene, and it's going to be a nightmare. So I'm just wondering, you know, should we at least keep it in Cheshire County, except for, you know, emergency situations, not just people that hear that the city's going to give them something and they get to stay at the Best Western for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. The Keene Inn, I mean, anyway, there was someone, a friend of mine was staying at the Marriott, but he actually had a broken leg, and I can completely understand that. And he's lived here his whole life. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I'm just hoping that we could maybe sort of not offer everything to the, you know, everybody on the planet. I mean, compassion's one thing and responsibility's another. And I think we should look out for the citizens of Keene and put them first.
Thank you for your comments. And I know we have a process around that. Do you want to speak to that a little bit around the process we are?
Certainly. So when somebody comes to the office, we do take an application from them. We ask them where they are from, the last place they have rented from. If they have come from another community, we will call that welfare director from that community to see how they would like to handle it, because ultimately those towns are responsible for their own citizens. If the town decides they are not going to assist, we then bill the town for the assistance that is provided, and we have received money back in that sense. But we do, it's Keene residents that we are handling for the most part.
And that is one of the misconceptions, because there are organizations in Keene that do bring in folks from out of town that accept the funds from 211, or from the state, which requires that they register with 211. The city is not in that same situation, because we don't run shelters ourselves, right? So there's,
Yeah,
tune up my comment a little.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Nothing to tune up. I just wanted to add to it. You'll remember, we only just started billing these other towns because last year we were successful at getting a law changed that made it clear that we could bill the towns town of residency. And so we just started doing that really more aggressively this year after the bill passed. And it's not just about the money. It's really about getting the other towns to be part of the bigger solution. Because if we had shelters or transitional housing in every community, it wouldn't be all in the cities or one or two towns. So we did make some progress there. Often, though, we do see some transients, and if they say they're from Keene and they haven't really been anywhere, maybe they've been in the woods for a period of time, they do become Keene residents. And then we do oftentimes, if someone is kicked out of the shelter, and they've been in the shelter. So we added language to the bill that talked about temporary shelter and hotels don't change your residency to provide some consistency with that, but we do end up seeing more people as a result of that.
Okay. Thank you. Does that help address your concern on that? And the fact that the city's not the one, I understand where that concern comes from. I have the same concern, but.
Yeah, it's like that saying, if you build it, they will come.
And the system is largely built that way, right? It's not even that they will, it's that they will be sent. So it's.
And they're coming.
Yeah.
Trust me, they're coming.
Yep.
I mean, a guy from Philly, I don't know if I don't want to say his name. He was at the Keene till he got kicked out. Police were called. Then he got put up at Best Western for well over a month.
Mm.
Perfectly capable of working. He actually got a job at Home Depot for a little while until he quit.
Mm.
And then, I mean, I could go on and on and on about stories.
No, and the stories are absolutely tough. So does that help address your concern on this particular issue of this
Yeah,
money
I
is
just wanted
intended for?
to let you guys know. I mean, like I said, Natalie does a great job. I love Natalie, and I know she's got a big heart. I just hope we can see the totality of the situation, that's all.
Absolutely, and I appreciate all the work that Natalie's office as well as the city manager has done with getting some of this stuff changed going to Concord and getting some of these rules changed, because at that point we could not bill back as easily before last year. So thank you for your concern.
If I may, there are some misconceptions also that everybody who is in some of these hotels belongs to Keene. Other communities do use these hotels for their welfare clients as well.
And not paid for by the city of Keene. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Thank you for clarifying. We are one of the only ones with hotels as well, so it adds to that piece. So thank you. Any other concerns from the audience? Okay. Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion. Oh, 05.
You got number 8, I'm trying to figure how to. Move to recommend the adoption of resolution R2024-07.
05. One down from there.
Okay, 05.
Seconding the 05.
Perfect. Any other, moved and seconded, any other questions or comments from the board here? All right, with that, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Moving on to the last item on the agenda, the capital improvement plan. So this is the last one here. I don't know if I think we've all gone through a lot of presentation on this one. I think we're all very familiar with the capital improvement plan at this point. Our Are there any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the audience? Okay. I just want to say thank you all very much for the work. Finance Department, City Manager's Office, the whole staff, everybody who's sitting in the back, and I'm sure all the teams. Thank you very much. Sure, yeah, go. Just name and address one more time just so the minute taker knows who's talking.
Charles Smith, 9 Gate Street, Keene.
Yep.
The capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
Is that talking about building more rotaries and stuff like that? I'm sorry for my ignorance.
No, those types of things would be included in that. We've had public comment over the last couple months now. And we just had the public hearing at the last city council meeting to go through this.
Sorry, I missed it. I mean, we're talking about one at Market Basket, right? Isn't that
That's-
Swansea? Market Basket?
It's not at Market Basket. So I
Cliff
think
Road?
it would be before that, and then there would be one before that. Yeah. So in that Lower Winchester Street project, that those are in part of that design. Yeah.
I mean, a
It's-
satellite picture of this place is gonna look like the crop circles.
I think Snowman was what I was going for, but yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I'm sorry, this isn't the right time to go through those. We did have those already, but I appreciate your
All right,
questions on
I'll
that.
make sure I get to.
Come to the next one.
I'll make myself more aware next time.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
The budget hearings are coming up on all these things as well, so those will be coming up here in the next couple months. So, awesome. With that, ready for a motion?
Move to recommend the adoption of the capital improvement program for FY 2025-2031.
Second.
Any other questions from the board? With that, all those in favor? That's unanimous, and we are adjourned at 7 o'clock on the dot.